Hello and welcome to this week's episode where I'm joined by Orest Zub, who has travelled to 134 UN countries, is a partner of NomadMania and is from his home country of Ukraine. Orest is an entrepreneur or a freedompreneur, whichever term you like to use. And today I want to talk about his homeland, Ukraine, some of his favourite countries, his reporting from conflict areas worldwide, NomadMania, and what the future holds. Orest, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
My pleasure to be here. Thank you very much. And much more smiling together sitting with you comparing to the weather that we have outside in Vancouver, right?
I can only apologise. It's normal. I was hoping to be sunny, but you got a good day yesterday.
Yesterday
right?
was amazing, right? Yeah.
And where are you currently based right now in the world? When you're at home?
My home is Ukraine, Lviv. Western
Okay.
Ukraine, Lviv is my native city, and that's what I call home, right? Mm-hmm.
And Lviv, for listeners who are maybe not aware, can you explain what Lviv is like?
Yeah, so Lviv is the largest city in Western Ukraine. It's a classic Central European city which is connected historically to anything you imagine in Central Europe, with the wide avenues, leafy streets, nice architecture, trams, trains, bell towers, all of that. So we say it's like kind of Western Europe in Ukraine. So people within Ukraine, they travel to Lviv to feel a taste of Europe without leaving the country. That's basically how it is. The population is around 1 million people. Mm-hmm. So think of Prague, Krakow, Budapest, Vienna. Lviv is kind of in the same style as these places. Yeah.
Very interesting, because when we arrived in Lviv in 2012, no idea what it's like, because it's before smartphones, right? So you don't go on Instagram and put Lviv in. And when we arrived, like, oh wow, there's cobbled streets, there's trams. We're like, what is this place? We did not expect Lviv to be, as you say, quite Central European. It was a bit of a, not a shock, but a surprise.
Yeah. I mean, everything is based on history, basically, right? So in the medieval times, there was a medieval kingdom called Galicia, which is similar to Galicia in Spain, but this is like Central European Galicia, and Lviv is the historical capital of it. Oh, wow. The area of Galicia is basically spread between Western Ukraine and Eastern Poland. So that's how it works during, let's say, 19th and 18th century, when the Central Europe was pretty much covered by the Austrian Empire. Lviv was part of it. It was the fourth largest city in Austrian Empire after Vienna, Budapest, and Prague. So all the heritage you think of Central Europe is absolutely present in Lviv. Yeah.
And it's quite close to the Polish border, right?
It's under an hour drive to Poland. Yeah.
Okay, got it. And I want to go a bit back to the early story of yourself, growing up in Ukraine. What was it like? But also, was there any travel either in Ukraine itself or in Europe when you were growing up?
Yeah, so I was born in 1987, which is still the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I don't remember anything from that time. So my earliest memories already start in independent Ukraine, which actually came after 1991. Some people would say, and when they describe their livelihood in such circumstances, they say like, we grew up in a post-Soviet country, blah, 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 blah. But I have a different impression of it, basically thanks to my parents. They are both travelers. They were part of a travel club in their university where they were studying in the Soviet Union. And Lviv, being the westernmost large city in Ukraine and the westernmost city of the former Soviet Union, was always much more exposed to the West than the rest of the cities, people, and so on, right? So since early childhood, I started traveling, obviously, to nearby Poland, since it's only an hour drive. And then most people in the 90s in Ukraine travel for work, to some Western European countries or do some international trade or so. My family is not an exception, to make a buck in a collapsed economy, you have to survive somehow. However, somehow my parents were smart enough to send me to a few international camps for children, mostly in Poland, Slovakia, Germany, where I, from early childhood, I'm talking about the early teens, I started to speak with students from other countries, maintaining pen-friend relations with the,
pen friends, yeah.
The
same age, so yeah.
Exactly, this one. And I started learning English thanks to my mother, who sent me to like a specialized school. So basically, since 7-year-old, I'm trying to speak English as well. And yeah, like I was fortunate enough. That's basically what I can say. So I visited a few countries as a child, and then when I was studying university, already in 2000s in Ukraine, our university had a lot of relations with other European universities for exchange programs.
Got it.
So I was
Yeah.
involved into many conferences, seminars, and so on. And by the time I graduated, I visited up to 30 European countries.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So these opportunities are in Europe, and Ukraine is kind of part of them. So if you want to travel, if you want to see the world, there are options for that. Yeah.
And what was your view of the world in that period in terms of other countries? I know you've got your own country and you're traveling quite a bit in Europe. Any thoughts about how you experience different countries to your own? I don't know whether that could be with culture or how the roads, we're talking about the roads before recording, how they're quite bad in early days. Anything like that come into your mind?
Yeah, like the standard travel experience for every Ukrainian once they start leaving Ukraine is basically things are better outside.
Okay.
Is this like a general rule? Yeah, I don't want to dramatize here, but usually the road condition is better.
Yeah.
Public transport goes in time. Like I remember in my last grade in secondary school, in high school you call it here, we had this like 2-week trip to Vienna, where we stayed with the local families and enrolled with the regular classes with local children in Vienna. And like the real discovery for me was these timetables on the bus stations. So you can actually predict when the bus arrives. And I was like, oh, wow, like this is actually reality. This is possible. So that was like an example that how things are more proper, right?
Yeah.
Some trains can be more comfortable. Trains are very good in Ukraine if you did, like especially the long distance trains are really nice. You can sleep with them and they're very punctual. But, you have a fast speed trains, for example. So in general term, if you go to, let's say, Central European countries, Western European countries, is like improved version of what you have in Lviv in Ukraine, in most of the senses.
Yeah.
But this is the experience of 90s, 2000s. Now, in many cases, Ukraine is much more advanced than the Western economies, especially in technology, for example.
Yeah.
So if you think of, let's say, it's much easier to put a satellite and make a nice, legit signal or develop an app than building a bridge. So everything connected to heavy infrastructure is much more proper organized in Europe, but many things which are new and built from scratch are better in Ukraine in many cases.
That's okay going forward, right? Because if you're in the digital world quite advanced, that's where the world's going, isn't it? It's going digital most. I know it doesn't fix roads or bridges, but it's not a bad place to be if your digitalization in the country is good.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd rather have that than have the best, I don't know, the bridges and transport.
Well, it depends, It depends. It's about the sustainable thing because, I mean, things go together. You cannot have a super fast 5G internet and having an amazing, let's say, digital passport app, but drive on a shitty bumpy road, So better to put things together, and there's a lot of room for improvement,
That's fair enough. And for Ukraine, I've got a few questions because I've been there, right? So I've got some questions here about, interestingly, right now, I know we all know what's going on, but to travel in Ukraine, would you say it's ethical, and would you advise people to even invest their money to go and travel, obviously to support locals?
I absolutely vouch for this, and I would invite anyone to come to Ukraine.
Okay.
It's a good that you ask, is it ethical to come to Ukraine? Think like this. So why would someone think it's not ethical to come? And this limiting belief, I would say so, comes from the ideas like what I'm going to do there, the country is at war, would I look at how miserable is it, take a few photos of the destroyed building or so, right? So I want to contradict this and tell that, remember the early stage of war in Ukraine. So as soon as Russian troops retreated from Kyiv, every self-respected president of democratic country in the world was paying a visit to Ukraine.
Yeah.
You remember?
Yeah.
So your personal visit to a place or destination is the most basic proof of your support. And everything starts with a personal visit. once you are in the area, you start understanding it, you feel it, you shake hands with people, you hug them, then you continue your relations. You start making some business, or you like humanitarian efforts, or simply making friendship. But everything starts with a visit. And I would encourage everyone to visit Ukraine. Now we'll probably talk about the logistics and how safe or not safe is it. But my entire 2023, I dedicated myself to promoting visiting Ukraine, if we can use the word promote, or inviting people to come. And hundreds of people, thanks to these efforts, actually made it a visit, and none of them regretted it. So, yeah.
Okay, I think where I was going, from my personal point of view, I would have no qualms. I would go to visit Ukraine. I think what I would struggle with is I'm in a cafe, probably having a coffee, and yes, I'm investing in local people, and that's great. But I'm like chilling out, enjoying myself, when there could be people, your own country people, who are suffering in maybe a different part of the country. I would struggle, am I okay being here, having a conversation, having a laugh, having fun, whilst part of the country is not having fun.
How can we permit ourselves sitting in this amazing podcast studio while children are starving in Africa?
Exactly. There's not just Ukraine, it's just all around the world.
Yeah.
It's a struggle with
how can you drive a motor vehicle in Vancouver if the ice is melting in the same country in the north and polar bears are dying?
Yeah.
So this is completely nonsense, I would say, because the life is complex.
Yeah.
Life is not fair, but being somewhere, as I told, it means a lot. And an example would be, people in Ukraine just so grateful and so happy when they have a visitor. Hospitality is in our blood.
Yeah.
As you probably remember from yourself.
Loved it.
But also to give another perspective. Now we're in Vancouver. I came here from East Asia, where I spent a couple of months, and we'll talk about the travels further. And during that part, I visited Myanmar. And Myanmar now is going through some serious civil war.
Indeed.
And people just tell it's unethical to go, especially that the government is on the dark side there. In Ukraine, things are cool. We have the government which is supported by the West.
Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah. There you have the opposite story. So you basically have the government which is against the democratic liberal principles, and many people consider it unethical, first of all, coming to country at war, and even secondly, because you have a totalitarian, authoritarian government, you go, you support this, and so on, right? But I cannot tell you how grateful were the people when I was hanging out with them. And
is that right?
even on every step you go, everyone just so nice, And even when I was checking in the airport to leave Yangon, for Bangkok, the guy in the counter was like, "Sir, thank you for coming."
Wow.
It was just amazing, And something similar in Ukraine. I think when people go through such hardships, the spirit of life and the hunger of life is on a completely different level as opposed to a standard society.
Yes.
And that's what you feel when you come to Ukraine.
So the main reason I would go is because I feel like I am contributing to the local people, right? It could be staying in their Airbnb, could be buying coffee in their cafe. So that's why I would go, because I feel like if that helps them in any way, and I'm supporting the local industry, that's great.
This is very transactional, mindset, I would say. Just your presence and the fact that you care means much more than buying an ice cream from a local vendor. In the grand scheme of things, let's say comparing to international trade, what is happening, or to the volumes of financial support which is coming from Canada to Ukraine, your $5 will not make any difference.
True. Very true.
Even to this guy who is selling ice cream, the local market will provide him much more than one foreigner who comes for this. I don't tell it doesn't. You should not do it, right? Obviously you do, but this is very transactional mindset. I would encourage people to think in terms of values, presence, understanding, and spreading the word. This is what really matters. So when you, as a British Canadian, come to Ukraine, you spend $50, $70, $100 per day, and you spend for 2 weeks, you will leave $1,000 or $2,000 there. That's cool, But much more important is the fact that you will be there you send positive vibes to local people.
Yeah.
They will receive a message of hope. Then you come back here to Vancouver, and people will ask you like, so how was Ukraine? You know?
Yeah.
And you will tell like, well, I mean, it was great mostly, you know.
Yeah.
There were like some pros and cons, but in general, I would tell you guys, I mean, those are amazing people. You should come and visit again. And this is the scalability which is possible to reach.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I've got a bit of a controversial question then. So what about if I went to go and visit Russia as a tourist? Is that okay?
I mean, that's your decision.
Yeah.
I would not blame, right, for you. I mean, probably most people in Ukraine would tell you like, like, nothing to do there or so. It's up to you completely, you know. And I understand. Okay, there is like this perspective. So many people tell like nobody should go to Russia. Let's keep them isolated and so on, right? First of all, when you visit a place, you understand it much more.
Yeah.
Some people would tell, how are you going to conquer something without going there? Yeah, but that's from the terms of education, understanding, sending the message. It's I mean, people can do whatever they do. Yeah. Obviously, I would not go to Russia now. First of all, from the ethical point of view, and secondly, it's a security.
Yeah, of
also
course,
for me, right?
Yeah.
But people do go to Russia. I'm not the one to encourage or discourage this. It just happens, and this is like, you know, will happen anyway. You know, I was just in China. So what? I mean, this is, you know, it's also controversial, right? Because China is on the unsettled point, and there are questions about the human rights in the country and so on. But I mean, I spent a great time in China. Did they contribute to the authoritarian regime over there? I don't know, you know. However, with the experiences I really participated there, I believe they were on the right side. That's it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Back to Ukraine.
Yeah.
So logistics. So we're tourists right now. What is the easiest way to get to Ukraine?
The easiest?
Yeah.
So something you have to take into consideration is that all airports are closed now in Ukraine. So the airspace for civil aviation is closed. So the only way to arrive to visit Ukraine is to go by land. Obviously, the Russian-Ukrainian border is inaccessible,
of course.
Not just because of our relations between our countries, but because there is a front line and mines and so on. So you can visit Ukraine absolutely easily over land from any European country, including Moldova, plus Moldova. So all the EU borders are open. They function properly. There are buses. So like, logistically, you can enter from Poland, Slovakia, Romania, Hungary, and Moldova.
Not Belarus?
No, Belarus is also closed, and it's probably also mined. You know, but, Russian troops invaded from Belarus at the early stage of the war. So that's Belarus and Russia completely out of question, obviously. From every European country you can go with all type of land transportation, which are trains, buses, pedestrian border crossing. They all function properly, and all foreigners are welcome with the standard procedures, visa-free, or if you come from the visa country, you just apply in the foreign embassy and get a visa. But otherwise, everything is open as it was before the war.
And getting from city to city, so it could go from Lviv to Kiev, or to, we mentioned Cherkasy, I'm not sure, has a bit of a different one, or Odessa. It's easy to get around, trains and and buses.
So the local logistical infrastructure works as it was working before the war, and I would say it even works better now. And here's explanation. So when people think of a country at war, they picture a situation that the all population stay in caves, and, you know, they seek shelter, and it's quiet, and, you know, there are people fighting on the streets and, you know, destroying, bomb, blah, 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 and so on. The situation in Ukraine is different from Myanmar or any other conflicts we know happened recently. Usually what we've seen is, let's say, Syria, Sudan, Myanmar, a bunch of other places, you have an internal conflict. So basically there are a few different parties that are fighting within the country in the multiple locations. In Ukraine, we have a classic international war with the front line. So basically there is Russia on one side, Ukraine on another side, and there is a 1,000-mile long front line which is an area with the hundreds of thousands of troops on both sides. This front line is almost static at the moment. So it's not moving much. And even if it moves like a few 100 meters per week. Imagine a long huge red line with thousands of people, with trenches, classic World War I, tanks, artillery on both sides. And then beyond that, life goes on. So all the logistics is organized to support and hold the front line, which means trains have to operate faster and more efficiently. The postal service, the roads have to new roads have to be built to move troops back and forth, and location and goods and so on. So logistically, Ukraine is very efficient. Like every train is in time. It's mind blowing how it works.
Like Japan.
It's kind of so. Now, when many Ukrainians fled to Western Europe, they you go to France or your native country. England
UK,
is crazy, with all the trains and so on. People, Ukrainians where am I? What is happening? So this one, within the country, you can travel easy. You have all the apps. You book things online, Airbnb, Booking.com. Everything works as it used to be, 5G, completely no problem with that. So the place where you will not go is obviously the battlefield, and you will not even get there physically. Because if you're talking on the front line, then there are a few rows of defenses, right? And there are checkpoints starting 50 kilometers from the front line. They will, just a roadblock, and they will check where do you go. If you are a crazy tourist who didn't find his way around, they just tell you okay, sir, just go back. And that's basically what will happen in the worst case scenario. If you have, let's say, a license, as I do as a war reporter, then you will be able to get closer and closer. But otherwise, there is no way you will do it. And you might ask, what about the safety situation and so on? So as I already mentioned, there is a classic front line, right? So all the destruction that you see on the video, like the destroyed cities, collapsing and so on, this is mostly caused by artillery fire. What does it mean? That enough volume of tanks, mortars and so on, approach the target close enough that they can pour all this amazing volume of bombs and so on. And the normal range of artillery fire is 20-30 kilometers. So if they approach the city for 20-30 kilometers, they can produce this destructive force. That's how it happened. So which means that if you're not approaching the front line for 30-20 kilometers, the city, which is 50 kilometers from the front line, is the same as my native city Lviv, which is 1,000 kilometers.
Got it.
The exception here are long-range missiles that Russia is shooting daily to Ukraine. But first of all, there are not that many missiles than tank bullets, for example, right? Or there are not that many missiles as tanks. They are one-used. They are expensive, and it's much more complicated to shoot a long-range missile than fire a bullet from the tank, for example, right? So they're mostly used to target some, let's say, military objects around the country, some energy like power plants or so. Obviously, they do shoot civilian objects, and people die and so on. But it's very, very small likelihood that you will happen. Let's say a few days ago, right, there was a massive attack on Kyiv. 30 rockets were targeting Kyiv. 29 of those rockets were destroyed in the air by air defense. One rocket hit power plant, and the explosion spilled over to a nearby building, 2 people got injured because of the blast from the window and cut a hand or so, right? Sometimes the person get killed. If the missile misses the some target facility, it can hit the, let's say, residential building. And then what happens when the missile hits the residential building is usually, let's say, a block of windows, or let's say between 1 and 2, 3 apartments get destroyed. If there are people sleeping in those apartments, well, they die, unfortunately. However, this is like happens very, very rarely. Okay, it doesn't happen rarely. It rarely happens often, let's say on a weekly basis in Ukraine. But what is the likelihood that you will be sleeping in this apartment when there are like 30 million in the country now? Very, very small. I was living in my own city, and there is a video on my YouTube. You can just watch it, where I actually show how the city functions during the attack. So basically, there is attack on one neighborhood, and like half of the building get destroyed. A few people might die. Sorry that I'm talking so calmly. It's just how it is, right? Yeah. Then the buildings around stay without windows, but everything beyond that block goes as normal. Like, people go to school. The bread is being baked. 2 kilometers away, you don't even care about this, anymore. So it's weird.
It's quite strange, isn't it?
It's quite strange to realize, and it's natural that people are afraid of it, because first of all, you see the picture of the media, and they show you exactly the destruction place from different angles, and the fire is burning, and the granny is crying, and all of that. That's how the media works. We can also talk about this. So first of all this, and secondly, because it sounds strange and you don't really understand how it is, you're afraid of it. Like the human nature is to get afraid of things that we don't understand how it functions. Yeah. So once you educate yourself and you understand how it is, you just accept it and you carry on. And you realize that being hit by a missile in Ukraine is much less likely than get into the traffic accident in Vancouver.
Of course. Yeah, that's the stat, right? Yeah.
That's basically how it is.
Yeah. And it's kind of important, I think, for you guys to carry on as normal, because if you start showing fear or changing your lifestyle, you're kind of letting the other side win. They want that fear to install, right? But if you just carry on as normal day-to-day, as you just described, which is quite strange, but it's key because it shows that you're not deterred, you're going to stay where you are, and you're going to carry on as life as normal.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It just becomes part of the reality. Yeah. And this is our fuck you message back to Russians. Ukrainians are among the most resilient people out there, and the entire world realizes this now. Yeah. It's just a different type of reality. I just came back from Japan, and in the one morning I was woken up by a 5-point earthquake.
Oh, right. Okay.
Our building was shaking. I was like, how can you live in these circumstances? All the Japanese just carry on as normal and so on. How people in the United States, live in the central areas with all these tornadoes destroying their houses every few years. Yeah. Crazy stuff, I don't know how they survive. In Australia, every insect wants to kill you. How do you live about that?
Yeah, and the weather. Yeah, the fires and stuff.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
So that's basically it's part of our life, unfortunately, or just how it is. Right. Yeah. 100 years ago, our ancestors, they were fighting for food on a daily basis, and early pioneers were getting to Vancouver. Half of them were killed by bears or some diseases. Once you cut your hand, you die.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
What else can I say?
And to finish on Ukraine, what places should people visit? I know you mentioned Lviv, your own hometown. Which other areas should visitors go and check out? So
basically, in Ukraine, the way it works, the Western you are, the more standard and normal European experience you will get. Yeah. So if you even visit Lviv, some people seeking to see the country at war might even get disappointed. How normal is it?
Oh, okay.
They're like, so where is the war? Cafe stays open, hotels, resorts in mountains continue operating. Okay. You see people in the train station in the camouflage who go to the front line, and girlfriends kissing their boyfriends going there, right? Yeah. So in order to understand Ukraine now, I would suggest you visit Western Ukraine for a nice leisure and cultural exploration. You visit Kyiv to feel the beating heart of modern Ukraine, how the city functions, how people are, how the government is, how the heart of the, I would say, Western values in the world now resists the totalitarian aggression, and you can really feel the spirit of freedom in Kyiv a lot in all senses.
Yeah.
You can even do Odessa in the south and see. Odessa is kind of was hitting harder, than other areas that you would go to. It's still fine. Obviously, you cannot swim in the sea because it's mined and it's blocked by Russian Navy and so on. But you will just have a nice seaside European type city just for yourself, and have a good time. I believe so.
Okay.
I mean, if you are really adventurous, this is not my travel advice, but you can even go to Kharkiv, and Kharkiv is like really close to the front line and so on. Out of 2 million residents, only around 300,000 remain in the city.
Okay.
The central part of Kharkiv is, without overestimation, is probably by 10% damaged or destroyed. So it's a sad picture, but there are still people, and I can tell like this, the further you will go to the east, the more spirit you will feel and the more welcome you will feel on behalf of local people. And this is something that you don't think will look like, right? But that's basically how it is, and I'm telling not from my experience as a Ukrainian even, but last year, actually, I spent a lot of my efforts to invite people to Ukraine, and one of the biggest projects we organized was together with NomadMania. We actually brought tourists, if I can tell the truth, travelers to Kharkiv and even beyond, even to Izum, which is like really close to the front line, showing our support, showing our respect. We met with the head of Kharkiv travel office.
As in like a travel and tourism?
Connection. Okay. Unfortunately, her office is destroyed, she told us, but we met in the cafe, and she told guys, I'm so grateful that you came, and it means a lot for us. So please carry on. In Kyiv, for example, together with the cooperation of the Travel State Agency of Ukraine, we were the first group who tested the memory route, because there are now discussions in the travel section of Ukrainian authorities and so on. How should we communicate about the war?
Yes.
And something I really want to avoid is to turn Ukraine into a war tourism destination.
Like dark tourism, you mean?
Yeah. So think of you traveled extensively. Have you been to Bosnia and Herzegovina, to Sarajevo?
No.
Okay. So we all know about the Yugoslav wars, right? We all know about the siege of Sarajevo, which lasted for 4 years and thousands of people died. So unfortunately, and I tell this is my personal opinion, all tourism in Sarajevo is built about Sarajevo siege. So people go there to have this high adrenaline feeling. How was the war like? From where the Yugoslav army was shooting residents. Museums. It's all about the Sarajevo siege and the war of Yugoslavia, in the former Yugoslavia. I don't want this to happen in Ukraine. That's why we talk between in the travel industry. How should we communicate about this? It has to be educational, empathetic. And understanding the culture and understanding how it goes, but not in a way that you take a picture on the rubble of a destroyed building and see how cool dude I am. That's the point. And this is the message I want to send to the world.
I couldn't do Sarajevo for one reason. I have a friend here who actually escaped through the tunnels, and when she describes what happened and the emotion it comes across, the fact that I would go there and be a tourist to do that exact same route that she done, but she was surviving, escaping the snipers and stuff. No, I can.
I mean, if you go to Sarajevo now, I assure you'll have an amazing time.
I just want to be a normal tourist there, not doing this dark tourism, I suppose. Okay, it's a good point about Ukraine, actually. Okay, so more about yourself. 134 UN countries. That's a very good target. Very impressive. You're a digital nomad right now. So you travel to country, you do a bit of work on the road. What are you doing in terms of work and living whilst traveling as well?
My main career now is NomadMania. I'm a managing partner in this online platform for big travelers. Basically, it's a travel tech company where we produce different mapping and travel tracking tools for people, and also we enable travelers all over the world to connect between themselves. So that's like a niche thing for big travelers, and that's basically my main work and focus at the moment. I am also a Ukrainian blogger, so that's like a big side of what I'm doing as a standard travel lifestyle blogger. Obviously, because of the events in my country, I don't really do recreational travel anymore. It's mostly about educating myself and educating my community about the world. If like this is as close as it can get to travel, you know. So, for example, recently I visited Bangladesh, and you can go to Bangladesh, you know, just to hang out on the longest beach in the world, which is there, you know, and you know maybe experience the traffic of Dhaka. But during that trip, I also visited the Rohingya refugee camp, which is the largest refugee camp in the entire world, with over 1 million people living, staying there without passports, without opportunity to travel beyond this camp, and without high education opportunities, you know, which is basically really situation without the perspective, right?
Yeah.
And those people fled from neighboring Myanmar, where is war happening right now, right? So I go there because it's a close topic to me, because many of my people actually lived through this. But this also, as I told, it shows the message of the support to the local people, but also educates the entire world. And that's basically travel-wise how I do now. Obviously, there is something like in between. So, for example, I rent an apartment in Bangkok for 1 month in between those travels, right? Yes. So I see something classic stuff. I would go on to the beach with my friends, for example. Yeah. But mostly I try to understand those things. Yeah. Another example would be I visited Kota Kinabalu, which is the city in Borneo Island.
Oh, yeah.
And, you can do a regular orangutan safari there, know, and see the wildlife. However, for me, it was very interesting to research the topic of sea gypsies, which is an interesting ethnical minority which came from the islands in southern Philippines. And
are these the pirates?
No, they are fishermen.
Okay, fishermen.
Okay. But they are living in those kind of huts that are built in the sea,
in the
shallow, in the shallow sea, Yeah. And I noticed that many of those neighborhoods get demolished for the new construction, and people are like, we are being pushed out, or I would like to continue fishing, but I cannot keep up with the modern capitalism. So this is something what's really interesting to me, and I find it meaningful, and I try to look for sense in this, at least at this stage of life. Professionally, NomadMania. Blogging. I also have a company in Estonia. I'm an e-resident of Estonia.
Okay.
It's like a standard digital services to clients.
Yeah.
So that's basically mostly what I do. Yeah.
So interesting what you said there about travel right now for you is more learning, not really like the hedonistic. I'm going to party for a week. It's more about you trying to improve yourself in terms of knowledge.
Yeah.
So the 134 UN countries you travelled to, were a lot of them before your thought now of travel? Like, were they more about just seeing the world in a much simpler time, and now it's because of events you're now trying to travel to educate yourself and locals about other countries?
Yeah, obviously, it all started with your wish to see the world and have fun and enjoy, because I think not many people would argue that travel is probably the best way to spend your time in general. So I started just because traveling is cool.
Yeah.
It's nice. Seeing the world, enjoying yourself, maybe some kind of ego a little bit. I've been to so many places. You're always like this guy in a bar that maintains conversation and you can impress others, This is also part of that, I would say so. So I started, as I told, consciously traveling during my university times in a relatively early age to most travelers. By the time I reached 21 years old, I visited like over 30 countries, mostly in Europe. And then once you get the travel bug, you cannot stop anymore.
True.
I did a few internships abroad. So I graduated as a lawyer. Once I graduated as a lawyer, I didn't take the regular corporate path. I thought like, okay, I want to see something beyond Europe.
Yes.
So one of those internships was a legal assistant in India. So I went for internship for 6 months in New Delhi, India, and that was quite an experience.
Culture shock.
Oh yeah. So what was interesting is that, as I told you previously, all my experience before that was like improved life experience, right? But if you go from Ukraine, things are working better. You see better off countries than your own. So traveling to India was the first exposure to, first of all, completely different culture, which is non-European, and secondly, the country, which is, let's say, a few steps lower in terms of general appreciation than Ukraine. Like the infrastructure is worse, people are more poor, it's more dirty, that kind of stuff. Yeah. So this affects you, obviously, and you realize that world can be different, and India on itself is pretty mind-blowing,
interesting country,
destination, very diverse. So I was based in New Delhi, having a regular daily work as the legal assistant of a high-profile lawyer there. And every weekend, because New Delhi is very centrally located in India, and you have this amazing network of night trains, which is a legacy of British Empire. I must congratulate you.
Let's not go there.
It's a positive. This is a good one, yeah. So I managed to visit quite a few areas during working, and then once I finished my internship, I spent 1 month traveling in the northern section, which is Kashmir and Ladakh. And then 1 month in the south. So I did my fair amount of travel in India, and there is no way back after that. You just continue traveling and so on. Then I realized I cannot do the regular law job, because this is probably one of the worst travel professions, since legal system is very different, and you need to, you have to stay local if you want to be a lawyer, basically. I looked for opportunities, and I found the ways, like internet was like kind of picking up, and blogging and so on. I started blogging, and I was like this interesting guy from Ukraine for my own people, right, who started traveling in early 20s, which is kind of like a different thing that was happening in our society in 2010, 2011, right? Yeah. It's like we are talking about the pre-Instagram era.
Yes.
Still. Yeah. And in order to make a living, I started to learn how internet business works. And I can say I was lucky in one sense, because you visited Ukraine in 2012.
Yes.
There was zero information, right? You were still using the paper.
Blind.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So 2012 marked a turning point in the travel industry in Ukraine, because this is the year when Ukraine hosted European Football Championship together with Poland. Yeah. And there was a huge demand for information, how to logistics works, how to travel, and so on. Yeah. So I started a website called ukrainetravelsecrets.com.
Okay.
And it was in a good timing, because I started this like half a year before the football championship. So the search volume was kind of like picking up from abroad. And I started, publishing the information, how to travel around Ukraine, how to use trains, how to cross the border. And there was one thing, did you take trains in 2012?
No, we drove everywhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
So buying a train ticket back then was basically you have to go to the train station, wait in line, then you get this weird print out, everything in Cyrillic, and you don't know what to do with that, right? So I put a manual online how to buy a train ticket in Ukraine. And suddenly all the travel websites in the world were referring to my article.
Oh, wow. Okay.
How to travel, because trains is the main means of transportation between Ukraine, and suddenly like tens of thousands of foreigners were coming to my country to travel between the football matches, you know. So this drove huge volume of traffic to my website. And then I started offering travel services. So basically, there would be an option, let's say a one guy from United States or from Canada or like from England, whatever, or a group of people were sending me the dates of the football matches they were about to visit.
Yeah.
And my job was to set up everything the rest with logistics, bookings, accommodation, tours, and so on. So it was a very successful year for me. And I realized that it's possible to work online and how the website works. So the website itself is not the monetization part, but this is your promotion shelf for something else.
It's a great time to get involved in that, because one of my biggest regrets is I just wasn't switched on 2012, 13, 14 when I started traveling, that you can make a living or do something on the laptop.
Yeah.
Like blogging, not necessarily like making loads of money, but the option was there. I just didn't click, and like you said, it's not luck. It's just like it's like being an entrepreneur, right?
Exactly.
There's probably something today that we don't know. Or...
Yeah, for me it was because I'm not a technical guy. I'm a lawyer by education. So basically, I thought like, okay, I need to do something online, but I have no idea what to do. Yeah. And what are my stronger parts? Like, what can I connect together to produce some value?
Yeah.
And those were my English proficiency, my love for travel, and I was based in Ukraine. That was a connection of all of that was a website about traveling in Ukraine.
Yeah.
In English language. That's basically it is. And it was a simple, I was trying this like HTML, all the stuff, but eventually it just all migrated to WordPress, and you just write it using as a word system. It's so easy, right?
Yeah.
And the search engine takes care of itself. Basically, you just have to produce value and offer services.
Yes.
And then actually I reached the point that I was already starting enough money to travel abroad, which is like a few $1,000s per month, since I was involved in the travel business in Ukraine, usually summers I spent in Ukraine.
Yeah.
And then by October, when the travel season was kind of slowing down, I was living abroad.
Okay.
And then it's a standard backpacking story. You fly to Bangkok with a backpack, and you travel in the hostels like a beach bum for a couple of months, visit some new places, you party, you hang out, you meet other travelers, you learn something from other bloggers, and then the next year you come back, continue your business in your location, and migrate like birds basically.
Yeah.
Things changed in 2014. When Russia invaded Ukraine first time, so annexed Crimea and started the war in Donbass, and tourism stopped in Ukraine. I mean, you would not go to the country at war, right? Even though it was still on a much lower scale than it is now.
Yeah.
And I had to figure out what to do after that. Luckily, by then, I already understood how things work online, and I started a lifestyle blog in Ukrainian language called openmind.com for my Ukrainian colleagues. And this was a combination of self-help topics, traveling, and business.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
And around that, I built pretty successful business as well, because my social media were growing, and then all types of partnership integration with relevant businesses. I was organizing tours, meetings, workshops, advertising campaigns, and eventually this grew into a paid membership platform for Ukrainian entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
On the subscription basis, that's like a good scalable business model, which enabled me traveling further and longer. So I could actually work online then, right?
At that point, was that when social media was starting to come in?
It was already like 2015, 16. It was also the time when the digital nomad topic became kind of like a norm. It was starting to pick up. So first I read about the term digital nomad, I think in 2015, 16. And I read about this and like, wait a minute, like that's what I'm doing for a few years already. That's how it is called. So this one, same story, 50-50 times in Ukraine and abroad, but differently. So if previously, as I explained, I was mostly like stationed in summer in Ukraine, and then during winter was traveling around. In this model, I already could afford to travel faster. And more rapidly, So I would say I would still have my base in Ukraine, in Lviv, but I could do multiple trips per year. Let's say you fly to South America for a month, you come back home, you do some active work for 2 months, you fly somewhere else.
Got it.
You know, these kind of things. At the same time, the airline connection improved from my city a lot. And it would be possible to fly anywhere in the world with one transfer only, which is easy.
Yeah.
And I mean, life was great. It was just, you know, everything was working fine.
In that period, what countries? I've got 3 here. Like, what are some of your favorites in that period of time when you're sort of like home base, when you're flying out to somewhere else? Like, any countries that really got you a little bit, like, you know, got you excited?
During this time that I talked with you, I was at 100 countries. You know,
wow.
So on average, it was maybe 15 countries per year.
Wow.
And I would say that the 2017 or 18, I visited 22 new countries and more than 30 countries in total.
Yeah.
And this was insane. I don't advise this to anyone. This is just crazy, you know?
Yeah.
A more manageable way, at least for my style of that time, was to, let's say, visit 10 new countries per year within 3 or 4 trips. So let's say, like, the model would be, you make 3 or 4 trips, 1 month each.
Yeah.
And during this 1 month, you visit 2 or 3 countries.
In the same area?
Yeah, in the same area. Let's say you fly to South America and you do Argentina and Uruguay.
Yeah.
Or you fly to Central America and you do Panama plus Costa Rica. You know, that would be a style.
Yeah.
So the 10 new countries per year is a good pace.
Yeah.
In my opinion, within 3 to 4 trips.
Yeah.
So this, like, you don't get crazy because of moving too much, and you are able to maintain other areas of your life. So the travel doesn't eat out anything, and you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, because I asked it pre-recording, and I ask it now.
Yeah.
What, between then and now, what was the percentage of being at home to travel?
50-50.
Okay.
Yeah, so 50-50. First, it was 50-50, but in a bigger chunks. And then it was 50-50, but still with the more frequent travel. But still would be around 50-50, yeah.
And do you think that's the sweet spot?
For me, it is.
Yeah.
It depends on the people, your lifestyle, and so on. So the way it works for me, I am always, like, whenever I was coming back home, I had to buy a new flight ticket somewhere because this is this light in the end of the tunnel, which motivates you.
I know.
You know, and this is your it's just a deadline to move things, to finish some kind of projects when you set on another adventure.
Yeah.
So that was like how my ball was rolling, you know.
Okay.
In terms of the favorite countries, so I would say a mid-size countries that you would visit within 2-3 weeks. In 2-3 weeks, you can see a lot, right?
Yeah.
Okay, like a good example would be South Africa.
Okay.
You rent a car, you drive around, you make some side trips. You can rent a car in Johannesburg and you can do this national park, Kruger National Park.
Yeah.
You can then drive south to Durban and you visit the Eswatini or Swaziland back then.
Yeah.
Along the way, then you climb up this to Lesotho. You know, this is like an amazing 2 to 3 week road trip where you would visit like 3 new countries, right? Another example would be Argentina and Uruguay. You know, you arrive in Buenos Aires, then you have a side flight somewhere to the mountains. You come back, you take a boat to Montevideo. Visit Uruguay.
Yeah.
This favorite, South Africa. Like, this is a good side trip, right? Yeah. Let's say a portion of United States.
Oh yeah.
Let's say a Midwest. I love this area. You know.
Really?
Like,
it always gets a bit of a bad reputation, right? Oh, it's boring. There's nothing.
No, for me it's so interesting because it has such a big European heritage.
Yeah.
And also there's a good spirit of this early industrialization. You know, this is what I like.
Yeah.
So also, you know, like you can just fly to the United States and within 2 to 3 weeks you rent a car and you make a nice road trip visiting a few states, for example, which is actually equivalent to a country because it's just so diverse.
Yes, true.
If you talk about some more adventurous stuff, I did 4 separated trips in West Africa, all done over land. And
Right.
what I like to do, and this is a unique feature, I would say, of my traveling, is that I like overlanding stuff. So, I
Yes.
would arrive
Yeah.
in Guinea-Conakry
Yeah.
and then travel overland to Accra in Ghana,
Yes.
doing 5 countries within a month.
I think there's nothing better. Last year we'd done a year trip. I think I said before. Too fast. 22 countries, whatever it was.
Yeah,
Too many flights.
exactly.
I just want to plot somewhere, have 4 weeks, overland only, and then fly out.
Yeah, so I was specifically looking for open jaw tickets.
Yeah.
So what I like is to arrive at one place and leave the area from another and explore it overland.
Yes,
like
best way.
that's what I was doing in most cases.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you can see the real local people that way. You're going to go to border towns. You're going to see a lot of different stuff that people don't normally see when they just fly out and in. Right.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. What surprisingly, because now I am in this community of big travelers that NomadMania is kind of leading, I was really, really surprised that many travelers who did it, like, let's say, beyond 150 countries, obviously your budget goes up a lot, but many people really just fly in airports, get a guide who meet them with a name, drive around, come back to the airport and fly to another country. I don't blame and so on. Everybody has their own travel.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there are other ways to see,
It kind of goes to my next question: is what type of traveler are you?
Yeah. So this is I like overlanding.
Yeah.
This is what I like. Also, I can say that. Some people tell backpacking is the most true way of travel, and you are dirty and sleeping in tent, and you're like the hero to do this. That's cool, right?
Yeah.
I started traveling as a backpacker.
Yeah.
But also depending what are your preferences, but together with how your financial situation goes up, your travel, it also affects your travel. If you can afford to stay in a better accommodation, maybe you have. I mean, in my case, I just had employees. You have much more responsibility, so you have to make sure you have a legit Wi-Fi connection in your hotel. That's why you have to spend more on accommodation and so on, right?
Yeah.
So this go differently. Also, it's probably aging, maturing. So
I think so. Yeah.
Whenever I travel with my wife, it also affects. So it's a different type of travel when I'm doing myself, crazy overland traveling in Africa, or when I spend 4 weeks, like now in East Asian developed countries together with my wife. You stay in Tokyo or Shanghai or Taiwan. This is different type of travel. You have bigger luggage.
Yeah.
So an example would be, I usually travel just with carry-on.
Yes.
I cannot stand checking in, checking out.
Suitcases, they can.
Suitcase.
Let's ban suitcases.
That's it. But, once you travel with a lady, there are more requirements, and we always fight with my wife. And eventually, you end up having like a 25 kilo.
Yeah.
With you, and obviously you're the one who carries this, but it's not all your stuff there.
No, most of it's not.
So what's interesting, I just came from Tokyo, where I was with my wife. But in Vancouver, I am by myself. My wife is in Hong Kong because she's doing art and so on.
Yeah.
And she, obviously, I'm the one who remained with this huge bag.
Right.
But I arrived to Vancouver with the bag.
Yeah.
And here, yesterday, I went to the Canada Post Office and just got rid of it and send it to Toronto. So now I'm with my carry-on. I will do Calgary, Edmonton, Toronto. There, I pick up my bag and probably I'll just send it to Ukraine with the postal service as well and continue with this.
Interesting. Why is she not taking the bag? Yeah.
Because she's, first of all, it's 25 kg, right? She went to Hong Kong, and from Hong Kong, she flies back to Ukraine.
Yeah.
Connection, and first of all, airline are not coming to Ukraine, so she'll have to deal with this with the overland somehow.
Yeah.
And then, getting from Hong Kong to Poland, you have to take 3 flights.
Yes.
And she'll have to deal. It's not the single ticket. It's hard,
Okay.
So, but since in 1 week she will be back at home, she took anything she needs for 1 week.
Got it.
To look pretty and be, confident in what she needs to be confident. And we just deal with the bag. We just send it straight.
Okay.
So that's basically the style. Another thing which features me as a traveler is that I connect tennis with travel.
Oh, yes.
So I'm a semi-professional tennis player.
Yeah.
I'm playing tennis since childhood.
Yeah.
Didn't make it into professional sport because of standard sports challenges that you reach once you are like 18. You have to decide, or you do professionally, or you continue
It's quite
normal
tough,
life.
right? At the early, you always hear tennis players like Djokovic come out and say, the people on tour who are ranked 100, 200, they're struggling because they've got to pay expenses, hotels, flight tickets. It must be quite tough for that.
So financially, even those people who are, let's say, within 200 to 300, still struggle. You know, that's what you see. Like, so only the top players are really successful. You know, the basic 80-20 principle works here as evident, right? Yeah. But okay, like I'm not even talking about top 200. You know, I was good in tennis, but not that good to become professional. You know. Yeah. But I mean, I do maintain sport, and whenever I travel, I always go to the tennis club. Okay. And this is a very interesting feature of travel because tennis is a life. It's for you for life. Yeah. And you have your club all over the world who play tennis, especially if you're good in tennis, you know. Mm-hmm. So an example would be I was traveling in Myanmar, and I booked a hotel near the tennis club. Okay. I went there to the local Myanmar Tennis Federation, and you know, like once a weird foreigner shows up in a tennis club in Myanmar, magic happens. People embrace you. Yeah. I speak to the coach and tell like, you know, like I would like to play tennis. I show him on the video what is my level. He's like, okay, like here is the guy. He's like a national junior team member. Yeah. Play with him a little bit. You know, I play, and the guys are excited. I'm excited.
That's great. Yeah. And that's quite niche.
It's a very interesting niche, you know. I play tennis in a few dozen countries. Yeah. So in India, tennis is amazing, you know, because they have this legacy from Great Britain. All the tennis clubs are kind of closed societies. Yes. Yeah. But if you're a tennis player and you're a foreigner, you're welcome. You just show up, and again, like they see you, you know, like some maybe semi-pro players can play with you, or you never get rejected usually. Like, they bring you tea and. This opens completely new door to your travel experience in the destination, you know? Yeah. And what I can say is that the more obscure the country is, the better tennis experience you will have there. An example would be, you know, I was in any Western developing country, tennis is a transactional stuff. Most of the things are booked. You just have to book things. You have to book the court online. You have your hour to come and play. If you don't have anyone to play, you hire a couch. You pay to the couch. You play, and that's it. Yeah. If you go and play tennis in Myanmar or in or in Bangladesh, you are friends for life.
That's amazing.
You know, everything is stopped because there is some guy, blonde-haired dude, who came to play tennis. You know,
because for that 1 hour. Yeah. Everything else goes out the window. You're not Ukrainian. You're not Bangladeshi. You're just two people who love tennis, and there's nothing else to worry about in that 1 hour. It's pretty. Sport is pretty magical like that.
It's so interesting, you know. And there are just so many unique experiences. Like for example, I stayed in Medellin, Colombia.
Oh yeah.
And I went to the tennis club. Yeah. And I started playing with the guy who is probably similar level to me, but I lost big time because Medellin is situated almost 2,000 meters above the sea level, and I was not adjusted to this air, so I simply couldn't run. You know, this is like an example. You know? In African countries, I played in Cameroon, I played in Togo. It's so humid, you cannot hold your racket properly. Oh, you know, so this is the difference. Yeah. When I was playing in Togo, the entire town gathered to see there, like one of the best tennis player beating like a Western dude, you know. And you had these like ball boys on every corner, you know, like throwing balls to you. It's amazing.
Wow.
In Haiti, I played tennis with some kind of like son of a minister or somebody, you know, because in the developing countries, tennis is not accessible to everyone. Yeah. So you really have a fast track to some really interesting or sometimes weird personalities when you do it.
Because tennis in what I would consider UK or Canada, this might be fair or unfair, I don't know. It's a bit of a posh sport. Yeah. It's not. It is accessible though. It takes $20, $30 to buy a racket and some balls, right? Yeah. But for me, it's football, and it's like not tennis. Tennis is a bit more like for those people over there. But I think for developing countries, it must be different. Yeah. It's just there's probably an element of that, but you could go over and deliver, I don't know, 50 tennis rackets and people can get really into it. But UK, be like, I don't want that. Why give me a tennis racket?
Yeah,
so it's quite
this is
interesting.
Interesting niche, and I started liking this more and more.
Yeah.
Maybe now because I kind of slowed down in my just previously you go take a picture of all the monuments and so on. Now I made tennis a thing for my travel.
That's great,
and it really opens up a completely new perspective on the thing you travel.
God, that's amazing. Okay, I never thought that would be a thing. Okay, you mentioned NomadMania. I've talked to Harry Mitsidis about this because he is a founder. Harry, great guy, by the way. What was your role there, and how did you get into NomadMania as well? Like, where was the connection for that?
So to learn more about NomadMania, I encourage all our listeners to listen to another podcast that you have. Yeah. It's a really cool one where people can listen to Harry Mitsidis, who is the founder of NomadMania. And Harry is one of the most traveled person alive. He visited every country in the world twice, which is kind of a big thing.
It's crazy,
He's constantly traveling. We have different types of travel. NomadMania is a travel tech company. It's an online resource which provides different tools for travelers. And basically, you can create your map of visited places, profile. You can see other travelers. You can connect with them, and so on. So just check it out. It was founded by Harry as an idea around 10 years ago with an even different name. Then it evolved into NomadMania and became technically more advanced approximately 4 or 5 years ago. And that was about the time when I stumbled upon NomadMania as my tool to create my travel map, which is very interesting.
Okay.
So it's was one of those websites where you register, you create a nice looking travel map that you can share online, or you just keep track of your travels. However, it's more than a travel tool. This is an entire community. There's an entire community behind it, So it gives you access to other travelers. You can seek advice and so on. And once you have the community, you have some kind of things moving, like some meetups, meetings, we use the word, conferences and so on. And NomadMania was hosting those conferences in pretty unique areas around the world to discuss an important travel topics. One of those was a conference in Orta Island in Azores, in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. It's a very unique place. And NomadMania was choosing unique destinations, but not super inaccessible. Like, let's say that a few dozen people can actually fly and stay there for at least a week in the same hotel, and meet for workshops and discuss things. So I didn't know about it, but I was already in touch, and I was fascinated by people who visit every country in the world. Because in NomadMania we have the term UN Masters. It's like people who visit every United Nations country. And since I also, as many travelers, have this idea and goal to visit every country in the world, I had this kind of another niche and topic is to meet different people who visit every country in the world to learn how they did it, career-wise, family-wise, lifestyle-wise, financially, and so on, and learn from them. And by that time, I probably met more than 10 people who visit every country in the world. So at one point, I received an introduction email from Slavek Muturi. He is one of the biggest Polish travelers who actually visited every country in the world twice too.
Oh, okay.
And you should interview him. Actually, Slavek Muturi, very interesting guy. And he wrote an introduction message to me and Harry, who is the founder of NomadMania, introducing me as a cool guy, as he
nice
told, apologizing to Harry that he cannot visit the conference, but proposing me to substitute him.
Got it.
So I got invited into this exclusive group of people to Orta Island, where the main topic was a 5-day discussion on what should be considered a visit. So when can you actually count that you visited the country? Like,
Great
is
question.
it just stepping in or doing the transfer in the airport or spending a fair amount of time? Anyway, like for 5 days, we were talking what should be a visit and what is not, and discussing all types of scenarios, like if you just fly over the area, like I would say, not far enough to understand the landscape or not, or if you travel by cruise cruise, or if you like enter the duty-free area or not, or like let's say if you take a river cruise from Vienna to Belgrade along the Danube, and you go through the middle of Budapest, you see everything around, but you don't actually set on the land. It's very interesting.
Yeah, it is
and
interesting,
only such geeks as us can do it. What I found interesting is that I was the youngest in the group. I was in my early 30s back then. But I produced some interesting ideas into this conversation. And, it was mostly the community of Western affluent travelers who already were traveling for a long time. Most of them did well over 100 countries. So I was kind of like a very newish to this, but I was embraced. I was I felt comfortable, and they seen that okay, the guy from the Ukraine joined this. It felt like entering an exclusive club, and what if you're talking about from Britain, yeah. And also, I was giving some good ideas on the tech side, because I was already familiar with the online business and so on, and how actually online projects work, right? So I started to get more and more involved on different, side projects to help NomadMania grow and develop. And it's a non-profit organization which was founded by Harry by the idea to make travel more democratic, more inclusive, and to enable people to travel, see the world, and experience what we experience while we travel, right?
Yeah.
So this was happening, and I believe I delivered a fair amount of value to help the community and project grow. I also initiated a NomadMania conference in Ukraine, where people from abroad and from within Ukraine came. We had a very good discussion with our Ukrainian travel community, how to divide regions on NomadMania about Ukraine.
Yes.
It was kind of a fair amount of value that I delivered to the project, and I was always open to help. And eventually, since it's a cool project and it was developing, it also requires a professional maintenance once you have thousands of users there. And Harry just offered me partnerships based on my skills, that he understood that I could handle that. And for the last more than a year, I am the managing partner of the project. So basically, I'm dealing with the operations of the team. We hire people.
It's going strength to strength, right? It's going stronger each year.
You probably see it, right?
Well, I'm part of NomadMania, right? I've got my profile on there. I love seeing the maps.
How long are you part of NomadMania?
Cool. This year.
You just subscribed now. Okay, but it's kind of developing. And recent year was one of probably the most successful year in how NomadMania evolved. So things go well, and for me, this is, first of all, I'm grateful that Harry invited me for this, and secondly, for me, this is the chance to use all of my previously acquired skills on a global level. And I feel very inspired and challenged at the same time to make it work, but it looks, we are moving forward all the time. So this one, and then it also came in the very right time. I would say, because let's say before the war in Ukraine, I was fine doing in my business ventures, traveling the world, living the dream lifestyle anybody would even feel in the Western world. So completely cool stuff. Then the war, and in that time I was on the NomadMania trip in Karabakh, which is the a conflict area between Azerbaijan and Armenia. We visited the recently by then areas acquired by Azerbaijan as a result of the Second Karabakh War. So I've seen the devastating force of war, with all the cities destroyed, people fleeing, and so on, right? And this was 1 week before Russia actually invaded Ukraine.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So the entire world was already...
So February.
Mid-February, 2022. So the entire world was already shouting, all the expats and embassies already evacuated from Ukraine by then, and so on. And I thought, wow, what a terrible stuff. I hope it will never happen to my country. However, 4 days before Russian invasion, I flew from Baku to Kyiv, none from our group who were supposed to be on that flight actually didn't take it. I was the one flying because I want to be with my country.
Yeah, of course.
So once Russia invaded full scale, I put on hold all my business ventures that I was doing before. I opened free access to the membership platform that I was doing just to help somehow. First of all, for that. Secondly, I didn't imagine myself just conducting business as usual when it happened.
Yeah.
So I dedicated myself and our team with all our skills and resources to support Ukraine. To report from the ground.
Yeah.
To build connections with media organizations globally, and to attract as much attention as much aid to Ukraine.
Yeah.
So I was all into this, nothing else mattered. I had to take part in the resistance. That was my full year. It was a very challenging year. After like a year, you kind of, things get specialized, organizations being formed, some connections with the Western partners being formed. So you have to think like, what are you going to do next? Yeah. And my idea was doing this like media stuff, connecting Ukrainians all around the world with my existing resources. However, at the same time, I was like, it was really hard, like if you see the war reporting for 1 year, you see the death and so on. It's kind of challenging. So there are many things happening also in my head, and I was like, kind of, okay, which way should I go? So the proposal to join NomadMania, I believe, came in a very, very right time.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I would accept should it happen during the first year of the war.
Of course.
But since it happened already when kind of things I got to settle down, but rather when you had to take the next step, right? It came right time, and I'm pretty happy how things are developing. Together with NomadMania, we organized a visit to Ukraine. We organized our first live event as NomadMania Travel Awards, also in Ukraine. So, so you have this kind of feel of NomadMania spirit, and it gets connected very organically, and we can transition this globally. So now we take the same event, we do it in Bangkok. And, NomadMania being an inclusive organization also provides here like support on the right cause, the same as we do in other places around. We do scholarship for people from the developing countries. Our team is pretty inclusive. We have committees that research topics as sustainability, women travel, so that's where we are leading, and I think this is also a right direction. So everything happens for the reason, happens in the right time, and for the good cause. That's what I can say.
Love it. 3 minutes left. Where can people find you? That could be social media, website, whatever.
Very easy. Orest, like forest without F, Zub, Z-U-B. I'm active on social media. Because of my active participation in the war in Ukraine topic, I started actually the English language profiles in 2022. Before that, it was all in Ukrainian. So you can catch up a lot of information there.
Okay, and I've got 2 minutes to ask you some quick fire.
Sure.
Travel questions, a little feature at the end that I do for the podcast. This is like some of your favourite things you've seen travelling. I'm actually going to kick off with a question. 3 countries that you've not travelled to, time wasn't a thing. Where would you go tomorrow?
Pakistan. Some Pacific, any Pacific island nation, I would say, and Bhutan.
Okay. And which country, apart from your own, has the best food?
Turkey.
Okay. Which country has the best coffee?
Ukraine. Ukraine has very good. True. Ukraine has great.
Okay. If you could sit in a city anywhere in the world with a coffee and watch the world go by for an afternoon and read a book, where are you going to sit?
New York.
Oh, love it. Okay. What is a favourite landmark? Can be nature or man-made.
Machu Picchu is pretty impressive. It's a combination of landscape and the man-made stuff.
Great answer. Love that. What about a favourite language that you might have learnt a few words in?
Spanish. Spanish, beautiful language, very useful, elegant, and relatively easy to learn.
Okay, and the last question is, if someone's listening or watching right now and they're a bit nervous about travelling to new countries outside of their comfort zone, what could you say to maybe alleviate those fears?
Go online, book your ticket. This is a no return point, and you'll have less reasons not to go for a trip. So this is like the go and book your ticket, and you will see that the life will arrange it for you, that you will make this trip and you will never regret it.
That's great. Orest, thanks for coming on the podcast.
My pleasure.
Love the
Thank you very
chat. We've been
much.
chatting for a while, and I think it's gone like 5 minutes, right? It's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah, thanks for making time and coming to see me in Vancouver. It's
Same
been great.
here, and good luck to you and your podcast, and to all the people who want to see and enjoy the world.
Awesome. Thank you.